Have fun. See you later.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Stefan. So I hope you guys all enjoyed that funky video. I think it was we've got a tough act to follow now, Jan. Hopefully we can make our session as funky and as exciting. So just as Stefan was mentioning there, you've got your chat panel there on wherever it is on the right-hand side. So yeah, it'd be great if everyone could just check that out, make sure it's all working. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Liam. I'm going to be leading the session with Jan here. And I'm actually logging on today from Ireland, where I'm sad to say that unfortunately it's a little bit cloudy today. So I'm just going to introduce myself on the chat panel there, and it'd be great if everyone can do the same. Let us know, what your name is, where you're logging on from. If you like, you can add a one-word weather report. Hopefully everyone's got a bit more maybe sunshine than we have here in Ireland today. Excellent. So that's our start off. Just as you're kind of introducing yourself on the Q&A, hey, great, we've got Tiez from Malta, excellent, and Sunshine, of course, Vesela, Vienna, brilliant, yep, you're very welcome. Dean from Cape Town, wow, I was there last year, fantastic place. We've got Jan, who's in Berlin, who's working with me. We've got Burak from Istanbul. Melina from Zurich. You're very welcome, everyone. Excellent. So let's get started with our presentation and the session that we're going to be working with today. So let me share my screen. So let me choose the right window. Okay. Brilliant stuff. Okay, so as Stefan said, our session today is all about your telemetry data and bringing it together into a single source, bringing it together into one place. So let's start again with just some introductions. My name's Liam Hurrell. I'm a technical training specialist with New Relic, and I'm being supported today by Jan Kunzmann, who's a solution engineer. He's going to be helping out on the chat panel there with questions as we go. And if we have any great ones that we might want to share with folks, we'll certainly have time just before we do the practical labs and at the end to maybe share some of your questions. We might also reach out to you as well in that chat panel and find out a little bit about where you guys are starting from before today's session. So let me proceed with our content for this session. What's our agenda? So I'm going to start off with an introductory talk around monitoring, really talking about the things that we need. So I'm going to be looking at metrics, dashboards, and alerts. I'm also then going to talk about moving from monitoring to observability, how we can progress with our monitoring, and some of the challenges that we might come across, and how maybe something like bringing all of our telemetry data together into one unified platform can help us progress or solve a lot of these challenges. So my initial sort of talk should be round about maybe 15 minutes, something like that. But the more kind of interesting part is we try to make this session practical and hands-on for you guys. I'm sure everybody's keen to get hands-on keyboards. So we've got a lab. This could take maybe up to 60 minutes, but we're going to set it up. We're going to talk a bit about it, and we can even be doing it at the same time as you guys. And yeah, it's basically how we can integrate something like Prometheus and Grafana dashboards with a telemetry data platform like the New Relic telemetry data platform. So that should take maybe around 60 minutes, up to maybe less, but we'll see how that bit goes. Once we've got that part of the lab done, we're also going to have a query lab where we get a chance to write some queries and build custom charts. We're going to use the New Relic query language in this instance in New Relic. And then we've just got like a really short lab as well, where we can actually use our query language to create an alert as well, to alert on our data. So again, it's really all around metrics, dashboards, and alerts. And we'll have some time at the end for a Q&A. So let's start off with a few slides then and a bit of a talk just to give us some context before we dive into the practical lab. Also, just to call out as well, when you registered, you might have got sent some sort of setup links for maybe getting set up for an Instruct account, and maybe for a sign up for a free New Relic account as well, New Relic 1. So we're going to have a chance to go through those again before we get to the labs, but those are two things that we'll need when we start to get to the hands-on section. So you can be thinking about those as well. All right, so monitoring, as I said, metrics, dashboards, and alerts. These are the three sort of key things that we want. We want to see data, we want to be able to visualize it, and we also want to get notified if things go wrong. So really, when we talk about monitoring, you'll come across terms like mean time to detection, mean time to resolution, and using our metric data and our dashboards to help us drive service level objectives. So metrics. What are we talking about when we talk about metrics? It's a widely used term across the industry, but essentially we're talking about data on how your application or your systems are performing. So it could be coming from your application services, it could be coming from your hosts and infrastructure, wherever they're running. Then in order to visualize that, get great sort of clarity on what's happening, and to correlate different sets of data at the same time, what's happening on my host in terms of CPU percentage, at the same time as response time for transactions in my application. If we can correlate these sets of data, it's going to help us understand the performance of our services, our systems, and ultimately what we're delivering as digital services for our customers. And of course, we want to put in place, we want to get proactive so that we get notified. It could be notified for like serious issues, like outages, but it could also be to notify us if performance drops below a certain level that we've set out as like an objective or a service level agreement. So I'm going to talk a little bit around metrics. What are they when we're talking about metrics? Well, essentially, they're numeric measurements. So we get a numeric status, if you like, at a moment in time. So they enable us to, across kind of continual stream of data points, grab values for how things are performing in the system. There could be many, they could be varied, but an example might be, something like CPU percentage. This has many kind of ways to interpret CPU utilization, CPU usage, but essentially that's what we're trying to understand, the performance or the load on our cores. Often we'll see these metrics then aggregated. They could be aggregated at source so that we kind of can more easily understand these data points as they're coming in. So we'll be looking, or you'll get experience of working and using with things like count or rate of events over a period of time, like a 1 minute. We could then use this aggregation to answer questions like what's the average, what's the total, what's the maximum, what's the latest, so that again we can start to understand this flow of numeric values coming in over time. The power of these metrics then, as well as just providing us with data, excuse me, they enable us to see trends, particularly if we're looking at things like averages, if we see them rising, if we're working with percentiles, we can see outliers, but ultimately the powerful way for us to observe and monitor performance as we're working with our data. Often metrics then will be described or termed as dimensional. This really means that we can split out these values by using metadata like attributes that are attached to them, so that we can then group them and bucket them into different ways and visualize them in different ways to make them more meaningful. So I'm also then going to sort of say, and this might be a good opportunity to find out a little bit from everyone who's on today's webinar, maybe what tools or systems you might be having in place to monitor your systems initially. We're going to be taking some popular examples at the moment, like Prometheus, dovetailed with Grafana to visualize it. So would anybody like to just give us a bit of a feedback? Well, I'd love to know, where you guys are starting from. Are you guys using, I don't know, something like Dropwizard or Micrometer to pull metrics out of your services? Are you using solutions like Prometheus or Grafana? Yeah, just be great to know kind of where you guys are. We're going to take the Prometheus and Grafana example here because these are popular. open source and quick and easy ways to get started with your metrics, dashboards, and alerts. So let's talk a little bit around then Prometheus, just to give it some context. So, Prometheus is a simple server solution. It stores all of the metric data in a local storage, so it's quick and easy to set up, and it works by scraping, pulling time series metrics via HTTP from different endpoints, which are called targets, and these are done in what's called jobs. The data that we get back then is dimensional data, and we can add in, it's optional, but we can add in these, how many we like. We can add in these optional key value pairs, and with something like Prometheus, they're called labels. So here's an example of the format that we might be seeing the metric data coming back in, your metric name, and that will be followed then by your, how you want to label that up, label name and the label value. So your label name might be method, and the value would be a post, for example. Now, what Prometheus does is it has a way to ask questions or query that data, and that's called PromQL. It's Prometheus query language. It also offers an alerts manager, so it's pretty much like an end-to-end solution. It actually has what's called an expression browser as well, if you're familiar with it, so you can graph or pull back series of data sets and values in your browser. But to take it further and to get full dashboards, it's often used with a solution like Grafana, another open source tool. And there's many Grafana dashboards out there which you can share and grab from the community. So quick and easy to get set up, maybe using some of those tools. But we're probably all aware that now we're working with much more distributed systems. We're harnessing the power of cloud and using cloud native technologies, and some of these might be providing a stream of metrics around how our applications or maybe containers are performing in the cloud. And we're ultimately trying to move to a more DevOps culture, a much higher frequency of deployments. So we're using a lot more technologies and tools, which is great, but it can lead to complexity. I'm not sure if this cartoon or little diagram rings any bells with anybody on the session today, but as you can see here, we've got many moving parts. So trying to work out what's happening, when, and particularly if there's any issues, we're working in it's becoming a way more kind of complex set of services and environments that we need to be thinking about and working with. So this cloud native, I guess, kind of revolution this journey that we're all on, has resulted in a much higher variety of metric sources. So we've got maybe, if you like, containers in the cloud, kind of, scaling up kind of and down, almost sort of over the 5-minute kind of period. We've got more distributed services. So rather than having one big monolithic application, we've split it into different language types to suit the purpose. And there are different instances in different locations. We might be using things like Kubernetes maybe to manage a kind of scaling cloud use of containers. We talked about using open source tools like Prometheus, which has, and all of these tools are providing different APIs, maybe using different protocols, and there's a bunch of different open source tools out there. We are seeing an emergence of, there are different tools and different standards out there, but we are starting to see them kind of being combined together with a project called OpenTelemetry. It's another CNCF kind of project, and trying to standardize on the different APIs that different libraries and tools are using in order that we can kind of start to standardize how we get data from our systems and services. So we're getting more data from more sources, but it's not all just metrics. So you may come across events, which rather than kind of following this kind of stream of data, these are individual events. So whatever happens in your system, it could be a login, a purchase is made, maybe an error or a transaction being fired. All of these are individual events, and they could be happening at any point in time. And again, they can have these metadata attributes attached to them. The great thing about events is, because we don't necessarily know what's going to happen, is they're being recorded. We can add custom events. And then after the events, if you like, or after time, we can look back and we can choose how to slice and dice that data. They enable kind of custom queries after the event. Whereas, when we're working with typical metrics coming from our stream of data, we're kind of aggregating at source, and we're kind of, we're working with whatever data we've given. So these can offer a different angle. Of course, you've got your logs. Maybe you've got a solution in place to aggregate and group together all of your logs. So maybe we want to be looking at those, right, while we're looking at our metrics. But what about if we've got, a bunch of different services? We're working with a more microservice or mesh sort of group of applications. So maybe, just like transaction time in one service doesn't really help us kind of troubleshoot. Maybe we need to follow that through. So we'll be looking at or wanting to get visibility through what we call traces, distributed traces, and each individual then span in a service is linked together. So these are like causal chains of events linked with this trace context. So we can follow through an initial request from browser through all of your different backend services right the way through. So this is where monitoring is kind of moving towards. We're moving towards what we call an observability-driven development. So observability, you might hear it talked about a lot more. Essentially, it's a modern capability that we all need to be kind of bearing in mind. So what is observability? Well, we're moving beyond just metrics. We want to be making sure that we instrument everything. We could have, more sort of, if you like, things to help load balancers. We could have API gateways. We basically want to move to the position where we're instrumenting everything. We don't want any blind spots, so that when we come to troubleshoot, we're not missing, there's no gaps. But then we want to bring together or make sure that we've got all of our data connected. So correlating data sets we talked about at the beginning, really important. But ultimately, observability is about bringing together then all of our operational metrics and trying to sync them or link them and correlate them across to what are we trying to achieve in terms of our business KPIs. A great example of that would be one of our customers, Ryanair, correlating business KPIs to operational metrics. So here's a quote from their operations infrastructure and operations manager. The top metric across the company is the number of seats or segments sold. Everyone watches that number. So it's all about, bringing together the performance data with what we're trying to achieve as a business. That's where we want to get to. So what are the challenges then with observability? Well, we've got things like scale. As we start to get more data, more environments, more tools, sources of data, data types, and maybe thinking about, storing that data, managing that data, and making sure that data is secure. So scale, storage, and access, starting with something like Prometheus can be a great way to start. But then we might need to think about, if we get more data, maybe we want to start monitoring more than just our production environment. Who has access to the data? Where are we accessing it from? Is it going to scale for us? How do we manage kind of multiple servers? What is our long-term storage solution for that data? As we said, we might have a whole bunch of tools to capture and make sure that we are getting full visibility across our stack. But having many tools then can make it more kind of difficult for us to find solution, troubleshoot issues, increase mean time to detection, resolution. Comparing different data sets from different tools can take time. It's kind of, one data set might not really match another one. So correlating across tools can take time and can even lead to kind of interpretation errors, finding that final, whatever the issue really is. So we want to ultimately try and break down this siloed sets of data. And that's why today we're going to look at the possibility of a unified platform. Correlating your data together means we've got one place to look for it. We don't have to be jumping from tool to tool. And ultimately, something like a SaaS-based unified platform means that we kind of, we don't need to sort of think about sort of the cost and the expense of managing multiple tools. So really that's the purpose of today's session, to look at the possibility or some of the solutions that can be solved with some of these challenges by using something like an open and unified telemetry platform. So a telemetry data platform enables you to bring your data together in one place. We want to make sure that it is open, because you guys might be working in different environments, using different tools. Maybe you've got some in-house tools to start with, or starting with some vendor products and tools to bring in your data sets and combining those with open source. But of course, really, we're developers. We want to focus on the performance of our applications and delivering that side of things. We don't want to get sort of too bogged down, if you like, on managing tools, for example, and the storage side of things, right? So today we're going to be getting a chance to look at the power of something like the new Relic Telemetry data platform, how it can be used, how easily we can integrate it with open tools that we might be using already. So let's have a look at it. Well, we offer a bunch of what we call agents, and these are great for instrumenting your applications or parts of your stack. But all of these agents we have made or are in the process of making open source. So you can take them as is or work with them. But you may be using, as we sort of discussed, some of these different third-party tools for working with traces, logs, metrics. So we can bring all of this together into an open platform, all these different data types, and bring them into one place. To bring in third-party data, then, we've got integrations like for Prometheus and Grafana that work straight, very simple to set up. We've also got a bunch of third-party SDKs, which again make it very easy. These are, if you like, implementations of the APIs. But if one of those doesn't work, like some of our exporters, you could just use what we've got, like things like an open metric API. So we have documentation all around that, and how you can just plug in your data sets and get them fed in to your unified telemetry platform. So just to maybe call out that, New Relic is fully embracing like open source. We've got an open source development site where you can check out all the projects that we're involved in. So as I said, all of our agents are now being made open source. We want to make sure that we're open and able to work with whatever tools that you guys are using and working with in your different environments. We provide instrumentation roadmaps for what we're instrumenting and how we're progressing with those on our GitHub repo site. We're also a top contributor and standardizing ourselves on things like this OpenTelemetry I mentioned, and contributing actively for the W3C distributed tracing working group. So we want, if we are going to grab a telemetry data platform and bring our data together, we want to be making sure that it will scale easily and that it is flexible for us to work with as we move forward. So just to call out then, really, before we start looking at putting this in place, underpinning the data platform that we're going to be looking at today is what we call the New Relic database. So just to call out then that this is a really super fast multi-tenant time series database. You can query tens of billions of data points in literally milliseconds from the way it's structured, multi-tenant. It's not indexed, so it uses a relational model, and it's got a flexible schema. So you can just add as many of the attributes to all the individual timestamp data coming in, and then customize it. So you can add custom attributes, custom events. So very powerful, very flexible, and gives you the option to scale up and not worry about what questions you might want to ask as you go forward. And a bit like we talked about, PromQL for Prometheus, we've got the New Relic query language, but it's much more like an SQL, ANSI type language. So we try to make it kind of easy to work with, easy to get set up, so that anyone can build charts and dashboards around your different data sets. Okay, so we're going to be looking at how we can use today something like Prometheus server that we've already got, pulling metric data from our services or infrastructure. So this diagram sort of gives you a bit of a visual on what we're going to be working with as we dive into the practical lab side of things. So what Prometheus does provide is a remote write API. So this makes it super easy to just push the data out into a source or a storage solution like the Telemetry data platform. And then we can then visualize that in New Relic 1, which is our UI, using, as we said, that NRQL query language or PromQL. You can choose either. But also, maybe if you just want to, if you like, harness or take the unified data platform, the storage, the scale, the flexibility, but you want to sort of maintain your existing workflow. So maybe you've already got a bunch of Grafana dashboards set up. So you can use the remote write and then set Grafana to be, or set the Telemetry data platform to be the data source for your Grafana dashboards. So that's what we're going to be working with today to see how easy this is to get set up. So this then brings me up to our Instruct challenge track. So this is where we're going to get a chance to get hands-on with the Telemetry data platform. We're going to talk about really what we're going to do. So I'm going to help just set this up to give you guys an idea of what we're going to be working with. So the URL for it, I'm going to share that for ease in the little chat panel here, just to make that really easy. And this is where we are going to need an Instruct account, which is free to set up. So if you haven't got one of those set up, now might be a good time to get that set up. So let me just drop in here. So this is the link to our Instruct track. They're called challenges. It's called an Instruct track, and it's got like challenges in it. So I'm going to talk about it, explain what we're going to do, and help set it up. Does anybody have any particular questions on anything that we've covered so far, or does anybody want to share any comments? It's great to see that we have got a good bunch of stream of comments and questions coming in. That's great to see. All right, let's set this up. Right, so I've shared the link. So I'm not sure if any of you guys have used Instruct before, but essentially it's like a web-based tutorial tool that you can use, and it gives all the instructions that you need. But the great thing about it is it spins up like different environments for us to, sandboxes basically for us to use and to work with behind the scenes. It has multiple tabs in it. So once we get into working with it, what we'd recommend is, with that link I've shared, is that you use it to open a new window. So let me just talk about here. So so we're going to need to set up, before we get stuck into it, our Instruct account. And I'm going to share this with folks as well. Let's just grab both of these. Let me share these links with folks. So these are the accounts that we're going to get set up, and then that link I shared to find the Instruct track, we recommend that you open that up in a separate browser window, because there's multiple tabs within it. So the cool thing about it is we're going to have a set of instructions down the right. You've got your main sort of screen area, and there'll be multiple tabs, and in those you'll have like a shell command prompt. Then you might have mini tabs, sub tabs that you can access to access Prometheus or Grafana, for instance. So what are we going to do just while you're maybe checking out those links or getting set up? Just going to talk a little bit around what the Instruct challenge enables us to do. So when we kick it off, it's going to spin up a cloud instance, and it's going to deploy a Kubernetes cluster. So it uses a Helm chart to set this up, to install Prometheus and the Kubernetes dashboard. So this is just what it does. This is part of the track. So we've used a Kubernetes cluster and a Helm chart just to kind of quickly give us something that we can pull some metric data from. When we get stuck into the challenges, the 4 challenges, the first one, right, is just an explore. Make sure that we get it set up and we get a chance to work with the tabs and just explore and look at the Prometheus data that we're pulling from the Kubernetes cluster. So if you're already familiar with Prometheus, this bit, it might be not new to you, but you can just click around and get this bit set up. If you're more interested in it, then take your time, have a look at the different metrics that we have available to us coming from Prometheus. Yep, and then each challenge you get a check button in the bottom right, and it will just make sure that everything is good for you to progress to the next stage. So it's kind of fail safe, and then the next one will tell you, and you click start. So it's all down there, the green buttons down in the bottom right hand corner. The next challenge enables you to connect Grafana. So we deploy Grafana into that Prometheus data stores. Track 3 then and 4 take a little bit longer. That's where we're going to use the remote write. It's simple to do. It really is just creating a URL essentially, and that needs to go into the config file that the Prometheus is using. So bear in mind that the way we're doing this one today is we're using Helm charts, so there'll be a couple of little things that might be slightly different, rather than say just working with the standard Prometheus YAML file and maybe restarting it. If maybe a service was in Docker or whatever, we would just restart the Prometheus server that way. But we have to do a couple of little things that are slightly different because we're using Helm. But it's all explained in the labs. And then finally, we're going to update Grafana then to read the data from the telemetry data platform. So that's all what we're going to be working with. Now, as I said, we've got up to an hour to do this, and you can reach out to us if you've got any questions as you go. What I might do is just give folks a chance to do the first couple of challenges in the track. 3 and 4 take a little bit of time. So what I've done for 3 and 4 is I've provided just some supporting slides with screenshots. So I'm going to flick through those in a sec just so you see where they're there. If you want access to this deck that I'm kind of working through here, you should be able to access it in your We Are Developers meeting session. It should be there as something that you can access. I uploaded it as a PDF. It's in the presentation section. So hopefully you can download that if you like, and you'll have access to it if you want to use it. Also, just to call out that don't worry if you can't complete the track, if you have issues, the track is publicly available, right? You can go through it again after today's session, or share it with any of your colleagues and work through it later on at another date. So, don't worry if you can't complete it. And we have got a couple of labs, remember, afterwards, and the labs afterwards don't rely on the Instruct track to be complete, right? So for the last 2 labs, I'm going to share some logins that you can use to jump into New Relic and start querying some data. We've got some sample data in there for you to access. Yeah, so look, hopefully you guys have managed to get set up with a New Relic account. One option, just when you set up that account, is it will default to the US data center. You get the option to choose where you want to store your data, but that's one important call out. Yep. So maybe if you want to use the EU data center, that might be an option just to check. But look, this is a free account, and it's great to start with that. And you've got full access to everything available that New Relic offers with that one free account anyway. So, all right. So let's. I'm going to just call out here. These are the slides that I'm going to have up or make available to you for when you get to challenge 3. We've got some screenshots here about how we, in fact, what I'll do is I'm going to jump to New Relic here, New Relic 1 UI, and just do a really quick showcase of this is what you'll get to do. You go to 1.newrelic.com, add more data, and we're going to add Prometheus. And so we're going to use our Prometheus integration. So that will be down at the bottom. There'll be a little button. We choose an account. You'll probably just have the one account, whatever you label it up as, maybe your name, and you choose continue. And then here you give it a name. So we might call this something like Prometheus New Relic, or Prometheus your name, right? Just so that you know what that's labeled up as. And then you click, because this is going to add it into the URL. So I'm going to generate that URL. And this is the remote write URL that we're going to add into the config file. You copy that to the clipboard, and and just paste it into the Instruct challenge. So that's kind of that part. And just when you're working with that pasting in, just watch that your indentation matches. So we recommend just dropping it in at the same level as your global in the YAML file. And you do just need to, it does describe it to you, you just need to update the sort of underscore to camel case. But just make sure that the remote write and the URL are aligned and inline the same level as global. There's a little link here actually to a YAML validator as well. So I can share that with folks. codebeautify.org/YAML-validator. So these are all in here. So I'm going to give folks a chance to get stuck in and get started, and then I'll have these slides up, or you'll have access to these, just how to do track, bit of support for doing tracks 3 and 4. And then we'll move on to working with some data in the data platform in New Relic. Okay, so I'm going to give guys a chance, stop talking just for a little while, and see how folks are getting on. Okay, just reach out to us if you have any questions. I'm just going to go through the chat panel. Looking good.
Yeah. And we actually have a question here, Liam.
Mm-hmm.
So deep.us, do I actually need a Prometheus server to get my metrics into your database?
Okay, that's a great question. Absolutely, you don't need a Prometheus server to bring them in. You can use, so if I just share my screen again, so probably the best way to describe that is that's just a popular way that you might do it, because Prometheus has just become, it's gained a lot of ground as a way. But you could, there's a couple of ways you could use. You could use some other open source tools. Depends really what you want to monitor. So there's things like Micrometer, Drop Wizard will pull metrics from your services. You can, if you've got distributed services, you can use things like open tracing solutions, so Zipkin or whatever. But also we have our agents, which is what New Relic provide. And these are a great way to just, I guess, take the instrumentation functionality and it wraps around your code, and it provides out of the box a whole bunch of metrics and charts for you to start to use in New Relic. So we're, any of these sort of exporters and SDKs that we provided for these different tools, if we don't have one ready for you to use, then we've just got things like OpenMetrics API, and we provide documentation for how just to start working with those. Let me see if I can just click my screen share again. So here, when I just clicked, so if you're in New Relic 1, for example, or when you first set up your account, there's probably a little button over here on the right, like add more data, or add data. Because I've already got some data in here, mine says add more data, right? But it will take you to a screen like this. So you'll see here, these are those agents that I was sort of talking about. These are all language-specific agents for different services that you might be running: Go, Java, .NET, Node, all of the sort of main popular languages. If there's a mobile front end that you want to instrument, we provide you with like iOS and Android SDKs that you could use. We even have a React Native instrumentation offering. If you've got services running in the cloud, you can use these integrations. So here what we have is we have an infrastructure agent for the different infrastructure OS that you're using. And then on top of that, you can then add in integrations for things like AWS, GCP, and so on. So you can see as we go through these, we've got then open source monitoring system. So these again, I kind of click and pretty easy to get set up. So things like Drop Wizard will take you through to the documentation, micrometer we mentioned, or OpenTelemetry. This is our OpenTelemetry exporter. You can again pick your language specific options. So really a whole bunch of range of different ways to bring data in and really get data reporting into this telemetry data platform. I think probably just worth calling out that, you know, instrumenting services or whatever, if you're just starting off, you know, some of these might get you get a chance to understand what sort of data is going to look like, what you can instrument, and so on. But these agents, let's say, that we provide, these do a lot of that kind of wrapping around your code, looking for particular methods and classes and things like Java. So these will provide, you know, they'll just fast track that kind of process for you. So you've got two different ways, but those are some of the sort of pros and cons. So yeah, great question. Thank you, whoever asked that one. That's great. Probably just worth mentioning as well that the Instruct track that you start, it does take a few minutes just to get it set up. So it's like it might take about 3 minutes just to get that environment built in the background. So you guys might just be mindful of that. Let's have a look. I just see a question there around the Instruct environment. Yep, absolutely. So after this event, yep, you've got access to anything that's been made public in there. So I think that's quite a sort of, you know, emerging platform. So I think there's more content being pushed up there all the time. So yeah, explore to your heart's content what you can find in there, and get learning. So I might start this track myself, right?
Yeah, so I guess it takes a while to start up the virtual machine.
Yeah. So we have a few little left and rights here to give folks a little bit of a heads up on what's coming, but yeah, it does.
3 minutes, 10 seconds, it says.
Well, that's the average. So maybe we could get it in a minute. We could be waiting 6. The good thing about the Instruct track is, it's kind of self-paced learning, right? So, and there's opportunities in there there's links in there that will, take you to learn more about Prometheus or more about Grafana. So, there are some little time limits actually on some of the tracks, but they're usually nice and generous. But if any of them, I think the one thing about this track is, because of the way it builds the environment in the background, is you kind of need to just finish it all in one go, but you have, I think, up to an hour to finish it. So I guess 3 minutes is a long time when you're looking at a black screen. It's worth the wait.
Yeah, so maybe you guys could give us some feedback in the chat whether you already got past the setup and already in the first challenge. Well, the first challenge is to wait 3 minutes on average.
Unofficially, that's the first challenge. Great stuff. Some folks are up and running. Okay, I'm going to click start. Good stuff, Barry. It's cool how you can see the data just starting up. That's the Kubernetes dashboard. Okay. folks are at the page here. This is a handy little tool. It's quite tricky to find that. I think that used to be a little tab over here to get to the dashboards. That's one little tricky bit.
Yeah, it looks like the layout has changed somehow.
Yeah, importing the sample dashboards on the dashboards tab. So it's go to your data sources, click on the Prometheus server. It's weird, it kind of starts with the settings. There's no sort of call out to say that they've changed that.
So is there something in the drop down?
Yeah, you have to go to the drop down to find the dashboards. That's strange.
Here we go, yeah.
Yeah, so you should find there's 3 dashboards there and you can just import them. And then to have a look at them, you just click on the actual name. So let's go to Prometheus stats. You should see the data starting to come in. Prometheus 2. You can put the charts into edit mode. You can either use the drop down and edit. You just hover over them and press E. Okay. Job Prometheus, 99th percentile. There's some of those extra links. All right, so that's that bit set up. Okay, we haven't added any new Relic at this point. Now we're going to use the new Relic remote write integration. Cool. So that's a sample of what it should look like. Okay, so this link will open up a new tab for your documentation. And this is the screenshots of what this looks like here. Pick your account, give it a name, generate the URL. So let me go to set up the integration. This link, I think, will take you to your new Relic 1. Copy that. And then it needs to go into our YAML file. It should be here.
Yeah. Fix the indent. Yeah.
Yeah, check that.
Always easy to trip over that.
Yeah, that's why that that little validator is a great little tool. Where's that now? Validate. It's happy.
That's really lucky. Yeah, it's very good.
Click that little save button. It's there. Now this was the extra little step. Here's where it says it gets a bit tricky. It's just a little difference really between the standard YAML format and the Helm. So we need to just change this to camel case. Take out the hyphen, the underscore, and that one. That's what we need to do there. Update that. So the final config should look something like this. Yep. Save it. And then we need to tell Helm to upgrade our Prometheus deploy with a new config. So we can just copy this and drop this in here. Give that a second. Yep, it's been upgraded. Okay. And now instead of, well, yeah, the extra step here is because it's Kubernetes, we have to delete the pod, and then it will restart. So let's copy that kubectl, delete the pod. It says that's deleted, and then we just set up a watch to see when it's kind of come back to life. Run that. Okay, 1 of 2. We want to get to, it says 2 of 2, so this should update here eventually. There we go. We can just Control C to kill the watch. All right. Once it's restarted, check for data button. Don't really think you need to do that, but new Relic 1. Okay, once it shows metric coming in, click on the Explore This Data tab. So here's a couple of extra slides that you might want to use. So to query your data in New Relic, up here in the top right-hand corner, actually, where is it? Yeah, you'll see somewhere in the top right, query your data, choose your account. In the box that pops up, choose PromQL, and then type your query, e.g. go _ memstats or whatever. So that's what we are asked to do here. Click on the, yep, explore this data, I think. Query your data, yeah. So we go to our one.newrelic.com, which is here. And up in the top right corner, nearly in the corner, somewhere up there, you should see query your data. This is our query builder, so you can access it from anywhere in the UI. Choose the account that the data is coming into. So I chose NIU training, choose PromQL style, and then we can use that same set of metrics to go memory stats, bytes total. And we just run it. You should see there the different sources down below. For the so let's count and let's run that.
Cool. So again, guys, let us know if you're already up or past this step, which Liam just showed, or if you're stuck anywhere before this.
Okay, let's check that. So apart from those couple of little steps, then the remote write is kind of sort of a quick and easy way, really, to just if you are using Prometheus server, just stick with it and feed it into the platform. And we saw then we were able just to go in and just query that data to make sure that it is coming into the telemetry data platform. The idea being around that is, we're using the data platform now as the way to bring everything together. It's our way to store, fully SaaS-based solution. So scale, source, store everything without changing your workflows. And then the next bit really enables us then we were looking at those Grafana dashboards. What about if we want to stay working with those, right? So we want to update those dashboards to be pointing to to your data platform, so that you can, leave everything as is, your metrics coming in, work with the same dashboards that you've already got. That's one way to take advantage of a telemetry data platform. So yeah, let us know how you're going with that. As if everyone's moving ahead with it, that would be great. Okay. Let's start this track. So I think this one again points you to the documentation, right? Doesn't it? Yeah. This one, yeah, there's a couple of little steps too. So I don't mind kind of just going through this part. Essentially, we need to set the data source. Remember, when we set up our account, we had to specify, where we were going to host our data, whether it's in the EU or whether it was in the US. So there's two different options just for the URL. When this one comes to life, so what are we asked to do here? Yep. So what we want to do is we're going to need a query key. Okay. So in order for the Grafana dashboards to be querying the new Relic database, we're going to need a query key. So there's a link to how to do that. I'm happy to showcase that. But let's just get to that point in time. Like step number 2, from Grafana home screen, go to config, data sources, and add data source. So let's do step 2 first. I can just show you where you get the query key. So we want to go to our configuration, data sources. We want to select the Prometheus, and then we get our sort of set of options. So we've got here the URL to go in, and the query key goes into where we add the custom HTTP headers. So we add one of those, you put in your x-query-key, and then the query key we're going to create gets dropped in here. I think that's pretty much all we need to add, and this URL that we're going to grab from the documentation. So we want to add a new data source, right? So where's our add? Add data source. Choose Prometheus. This one's called Prometheus 1. You can add an extra whatever label there. The URL we're going to grab from the doc site here. So I'm going to choose the US one. Copy that link address and drop that in there.
It's not strictly a choice. It needs to align with where you created your account.
Yes,
so.
good point. Yeah, yep. And then we add our header. So here we're going to add in X query key. Now the query key we have to get from New Relic, and it's in like a little admin place, a little admin storage for the database. So the analytics database is called Insights, working under the hood. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my More option up here at the top. And again, this is in your, these are added in the slides here. Add in the URL and then add a New Relic Insights query key. That's the header. How do we get the value? Where we go More menu, Insights, Manage Data, API keys. So let's showcase these. So we go More, Insights. Goes into the Insights Analytics database under the hood. We come down to the admin section and Manage Data. Then we come across the top here. Number one here is click the API keys. You'll see two columns, Insert and Query keys. So we want the query key, so we can interrogate the data from the TDP. So we click the little plus sign. You can label it up, give it a name like Grafana. And then that key that you generate, you can manage them here, label them up and list them. You need to copy that key. And that's the value that needs to go into that custom header field. So let me do that. Let me go to my Insights. We come down the menu on the left to Manage Data. We come up the top, API keys. And then we add a new key here. Give it a name if you like, and just grab this key. Edit it, notes. Actually, let me just go back and use the existing one here that I have for Grafana. Copy. Bring this one across, and that's going to go in there. Once you've added those, so you just add the source, give it a name. I'm going to call this Prometheus. Grafana TDP. So we know which one that one is. Add in the query key, add in the URL. Doesn't really matter which order you do them for where your data is to match. Right, that's it. Then save and test. Yep. So if we've done everything, add the data source, give it a name, leave that on default, add the URL, and then that's your custom header, X query key. Add the value that we picked up from Insights, save and test. It looks like it's working. Great. Now let's go to our dashboards. Manage. Let's clear these. So we should then be able to, I think is this not maybe in the next challenge maybe, but now we can see, we can, let's just make sure this is happy. Let's do the check thing. Oh, actually, the last one is not really a challenge, is it?
you went over the last part in Grafana to actually try to use the data source with the dashboard.
That's right. Yeah. Let me. Can I go back? Okay. So we now want to go to manage. Okay. So these are our dashboards. These are, we want to, looks like we already had them imported, right? I thought we had to re-import those again.
You go to the data source.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Here in that one, yeah. Now here to the settings, which has changed before.
It's kind of thrown me that it's like it just used to be, I think, just literally just next to it there, so you could see them. Yeah. It's a
so
little
now you can re-import those dashboards with the proper data source now.
Exactly, that's it.
Yeah, I kind of changed the workflow in Grafana.
Yeah, I think that's literally very recent, isn't it?
Yeah.
And now we can, let's go into the Prometheus 2 stats. Yeah,
here we go.
You can see it's just literally just started again. I think if you go to any of these, right? Yeah, it shows you the new source, right? Prometheus Grafana TDP. You can mix and match, right? But it's cool. So that's what you'd expect, right? So it's all like, this is now round trip. It's coming in. We're using the same dashboards.
So cool. Did you guys hear? Dean, Barry, Tease, did you manage to get that far? Just let us know. Cool.
Nice. Still working. Good stuff. Let's go to dashboards, manage. Some of those don't have data in anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's the meta dashboard anyway, right? Grafana pulling Grafana metrics. It's a very Inception.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are links, I think, in the track as well, but there's like, yeah, it's quite easy just to, once you've got the data source there, to create new dashboards, import dashboards from the Grafana website, right? They're all available. Just, I think it's just, you have a button even to do it. I think it's just import dashboard, isn't it? And it just grabs all of the JSON and you import it.
Yep.
I mean, like if you're not familiar with Prometheus and Grafana, then there's a little bit extra layer of unfamiliarity, but like it's a nice little way to introduce these tools as well. How you can use these. They're very popular and easy to get started with. I mean, it's really just a good kind of easy kind of way to, if you have that workflow, just see how you can integrate them with putting like a telemetry data platform in place. So we try to make it an easy kind of option to test out how it's going to work, what the opportunities are, and that's really what we want to get to next, right? Just to see, okay, so you can solve a lot of those problems with a unified telemetry data platform. You can learn more about Prometheus, learn more about Grafana, but having put in place a telemetry data platform, we'll next have the opportunity to have a look at how we can explore that data in New Relic.
Right.
We're all working from home, so it's
do we?
Totally understandable, Dean. Thanks for that little input there, Atanas. Good shout.
Good. So maybe we just go on to the next section, because I think, guys, you can also finish the Instruct track later on your own.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep.
So, unless, Barry, you have any specific issues which you step into, just let us know in the chat.
Yep, good shout. Exactly, and I could be setting up the next section, and great.
Cool.
Thanks for the feedback there, Barry. Yeah, as we mentioned, like Instruct is here. You've got like a little Discover button now at the top. So other ones that you'll see for New Relic, there's a Kubernetes workshop in there already, and a whole bunch of other ones, right? So you can have some fun with those. This is the one that we're working on, importing Prometheus metrics into the telemetry data platform. Great stuff. Okay, so we talked about metrics, dashboards, and alerts. So having put in place the telemetry data platform, how can we now start to work with some dashboards? We've looked at the Grafana dashboards. Maybe we already had those in place, so we've got those kind of hooked in. But what about if we want to just query the data direct in New Relic using the NRDB? Well, we've got a query language. It's like SQL, a simplified version, which you can use to ask questions of the data directly in New Relic, just like we did using that PromQL quick query as part of the track. So here we're going to take it a little bit further. We're going to look at New Relic dashboards and actually give you a chance to try your hand at some NRQL queries. So I'm sure you guys have come across SQL type syntax before. So let's have a look at some of what it would look like if you put together some queries in New Relic. So I've got open here let me just backtrack a little bit into New Relic 1 out of the insights, which is sort of the under the hood in the old UI. So I'm going to go to dashboards here. You can all do the same, right? This is in 1.newrelic.com. You go to dashboards. You might not have any set up. I've got a few here favorited. I guess to showcase where you can go with dashboards is I like to just do a quick showcase. I'm going to search for one that's always it's always buried, and I think it's in a different account. Let me see if I can find my buried dashboard. Yeah, this one looks good. So what we got here is a selection of different visualizations. Each of them has their own query, accessible here with the little action menu. So you can view the query and it'll pop out on the right, or you can edit the query and start to build it. So this is what dashboards can look like. What we can do is these, if you like, the attributes within them, we can make them filterable so that we can, let's say if I edit this chart here, these are the total errors across my different applications. I choose to edit, I can see the query. Select count everything from what's actually like an event type that we kind of, if you like, it's the data set that we can then run our query on, whatever the function is, an aggregator, and then we can start to group. So for grouping, we use facet. But what I'm going to do is, because these are the different services, is I'm going to make these filterable. So I'm going to use these facets as filters, and then I'm going to save this query. So this is just like a quick way to show you then how I can say, click on the filter, and I filter this whole dashboard then to this particular service, this application, error rate, total requests, response time, and so on. So also the nice and interactive. So here I can see I've got like a little needle that correlates what's happening. This is looking at error rate 10 minutes ago, total requests over a 6-hour period. These don't really correlate. So maybe if I wanted to explore this error rate spike here, I can zoom in on this chart and it syncs and they're all now zoomed in, and I can use my needle to see whether that error rate did it. Was it related to the total number of requests? Did it affect response time, and so on? And then I can reset the time picker period up here to default, and it inherits all of the original query window times that we're looking at. So these are the dashboards that we're going to be getting a chance to build. Let me flick back to my slides here. So if you want to start to build or access the data that we've got available here, I'm going to give you a login using a different login, basically, rather than the one that you've logged in with, which is your own account that you've just set up. So what you might need to do is either open an incognito window or maybe log out of that account and log in using this one. So again, I'm going to share these with folks so that you can just log in using the user learn at newrelicuniversity.com, and the password is pointless-meeting. So let me pop that into the chat panel so that you can just copy and paste those in. one.newrelic.com, that's the user and the password. Good stuff. So this will give you access to all of these dashboards that are in here. You can explore these in the. We've basically got like a couple of accounts. We're going to be building in the NIU training account, but we're going to be accessing data from our demo account. So what we could all do is you could just start to query up here, or you can choose add your dashboard. So once we get logged in, again, let me know if you have everyone has any issues getting logged in. As I said, you may need to log out of your first one or go for an incognito window so that we can kind of work in parallel, and then choose jump to the dashboards section up in the top, and then choose add your. This is add to the dashboard. I'm just going to click dashboards main menu here. And then it will say create a dashboard. That's the one we want. Create a dashboard. So I'm going to call this Liam's We Are Developers dashboard. You could do the same, and then just choose your account. So if you guys are all logged in now using that training account, select NRU training. This will give you a blank dashboard to start creating in. All right, so we get our blank start point, and then at any point we can just click to add a new chart. This is the same function then as we accessed before when we went query our data. So let's choose to add a chart. Now it might pick up the PromQL style prompt that we were using before. I'm going to change that now using this little button up here in the top right to NRQL. And then I get my select prompt. I'm going to query now the data, not in the training account, because there's more data, if you like. It doesn't really matter, but there's like more realistic data in the demo account. So we select the account that we want to query, and we have our select prompt. Now, what we're going to do is if you get to that point, that's great. Let us know if you have any issues. I'm just going to set up or give you a quick visual on the syntax. So we have our select, we have our function and attribute, which might be, maximum duration from an event type. So the event type is essentially the data set, the metric really we want to query. So if it's coming from like one of these third-party sources like Prometheus or Dropwizard or whatever, we would use the metric event type. If it's logs, it's log, span. So these are all ones that we've created for you to query those event types and see what's available in them, and then start to build your queries. And that's really what we're going to do first off. Other data sets that may be coming from New Relic agents would be the page view, where we're instrumenting what's happening from the browser. We also have the agent that wraps around your applications, and that event type is transaction. We'll come to that one later, just so you can get a bit of a comparison. So it's based around these main event types that we pick. So we can ask these questions, and then we can start to filter using a where clause, and then or we can group by. For grouping, we use a clause called facet. So our first query then to explore the data is going to be a wildcard. Select everything from the metric event type. This is a great start point. So in our dashboard here, if we choose select wildcard from, and then we start to type. Now, as you see, as you start to type, you get options. So you can just scroll up and down. When you're happy with the one you want, you can just use your tab and tab again. I've got select wildcard from metric. This is a great way then to explore each of these event types. It could be metric, it could be log, and you get to see then the data set. You see each row is time-stamped, and then these are the attributes in the column headers, and then we've got the sets of values. So we can see here that our metric data is coming from the Prometheus. So it's actually got a cluster name. And there's a whole bunch of attributes that we might want to build questions around. These are a list of metric names. So this is a great way to just have a look at the data, right? But it's not necessarily, it's not really going to help us answer any kind of questions. So you could try that to get started, but then I'm going to suggest that you have a go with these queries. So try selecting from that metric event type, try selecting unique's metric name, and then unique's metric name, and pick a service to filter to. So one of these services in the demo account is called order processing, where app name is. So you start to build your queries up. Then step 2 says pick one of those metric names from that list, like maybe transaction duration summary, so we can find out how long our transactions are taking in one of those services. But then we'd like to know, right, we want to aggregate that data. So we might want to find out what's the maximum or what's the average. And then different ways to visualize it, we might plot it as a time series chart. And to do that, we just type time series. So I'll leave this one up, but essentially have a go. Each one of these, then you can choose to give it a name and save it, and it'll add it to your dashboard. So again, once you've chosen that event type, if you start to type, it should help you. So there's our uniques. Then we start to type metric name. Just tab, 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 and then run. So we get a list of the unique metric names. So here we've kind of, rather than getting duplicates, we've just picked the individual ones, and we can get a list of them. We can sort them by clicking the metric name column and then get a look at them. So we've got a whole bunch here coming from AWS, Host, Kubernetes, Kube, MySQL, or whatever. So what we could do is specify from, and Let's choose our where clause to do this. And I'm going to choose one of those apps. Now, if you're querying this Demetron account, you'll get a list of services that you could query. So I'm just going to choose the top one, which is our billing service. So now we've filtered this list to just the metrics that are coming from that service. So here we can see they will start APM, but then we've also got transaction duration summary. So I'm going to choose to take that one. And I want to know what are the slowest transactions in there. So let me choose max. Transaction duration summary. Close bracket from that and run that. Okay, it's not happy with that because I kind of tabbed too quickly. Let's close that bracket. Okay, and I get a value. If I want to see that plotted over time, I can just add time series to push it into that kind of a format. Or if I did want to specify a particular app name, I could use the facet and split them out by the different application names. So these are the slowest transactions split out by the different applications. And I choose save. I can choose different visualizations, area if you want them kind of color coded in, or just lined up. And you start to build up your dashboard. If you've got started with a couple of those, there's another lab on the next slide. You could try now querying the transaction event type. So this is what's coming from the new Relic agent. And you'll see here is exactly the same syntax. Choose the event type from transaction, and then under the select, you can choose count all to see how many transactions. What's the throughput? We could facet them by host to see the load coming through the different hosts. Or number 2 says, count all those transactions, but group them out by name. Which transactions are being called most often. Or the last one is more around performance of the application. So from the transaction event type, select max duration, slowest transaction time, specify an app, maybe pick the plan service, and then group those facet by name to see which are the slowest transactions in the plan service for that particular event type, for all of the transactions in that service. So if you want to have a go at building those, you can then see how far you get, add those to your dashboard, and you start to build up a dashboard using NRQL. Let us know how you get on with that.
So it's probably worth noting and repeating that the transaction data which those latest queries are based on are not the ones coming from the Prometheus forwarder. They are just generated by our backend service agent, by our APM agent, instrumenting a couple of demo applications and generating that telemetry. But it's, I think it's good to also understand the concept of NRQL, because if you're familiar with SQL, which I guess many developers are, then NRQL is also easy to grasp. And then compared to the Prometheus query language, which I personally always perceive as some kind of cryptic and a bit difficult to understand, doing it in the SQL-like fashion is a bit easier to grasp. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty intuitive. You just start, I find it, you just start to type the attribute like duration and it will give you the options. That one. Let's choose series. Yeah, so look, we give you a chance to build a couple of more queries there. So we take another couple of minutes, and you can, as I said, you've got access to the dashboards that are in here, so you can explore the ones that are in here, right? You can explore the data they're pulling in, query them, have a look at them. There's let me find the Acme syntax. Yep, a lot of these are querying different parts of the stack using some of the, if you like, the functionality that becomes available when you start to take, I guess, the next level of observability with New Relic, which is what we call our full stack observability. So a lot of the, as we said, like the agents reporting into APM, give you data around how your applications are performing. So look, while we're here, I might as well showcase a little bit around that. So this is if you like, a next level on top of your telemetry data platform. You can progress into a full stack observability platform, which is what New Relic is ultimately all about. So this is what the metric data looks like when we start to get out of the box sort of charts and dashboards in APM for our services. Same for browser. You can explore and instrument any front-end applications that we've got, and explore all of the individual session traces, for example, and so on. And then if you're familiar with kind of things like browser and synthetics, browser obviously reporting on the front end, you can set up essentially kind of like robotic kind of tests, if you like, with synthetics, ping parts of your site and bring back performance data by checking that your site is available from ultimately different locations around the world. So you've got mobile infrastructure. Yeah. Okay, so if we've looked at metrics, we've then got a little bit of a chance to get a feeling for building the queries in NRQL, and as Yam has kind of explained, it's much more like SQL, and it's kind of quite forgiving, doesn't really mind about the order. Just pick your event type from metric, from transaction, and then you should be able to sort of start to pick your attributes and your functions. And as you can see, you can explore those dashboards, but you can do, percentiles, you can label up them as you go. It's all really sort of easy to start with, but quite powerful as you progress with it. But if we built metrics, we've built dashboards, the last thing we wanted to look at was alerts. So keeping it consistent then, using that same query language, we can use NRQL to build some alerts. So what we're going to do is we're going to query the data. It's going to bring back a value, a number. And then the alert condition we'll work on evaluating that number that we return back against whatever threshold we set. So for example, we might say, I want to make sure that the max duration for, let's say, my backend service transactions, I want to be notified, right? If that goes above, I don't know, 200 milliseconds or something like that. If it's the front end, max duration from a page view event type, whatever you choose. We're just going to use a simple example here, the transaction. So I'm going to have a look at what this looks like and then give you a chance to build one. This one we're going to do in the NRU training account. Basically, the NRU training account is like a fully fledged sandbox, so we can set up things like alerts. We can't do that with the demo accounts or any of the other accounts. So we go to alerts and AI up at the top. You get some options of where to start, and I'm going to start with alerts, the first big button. Now, obviously, as an observability platform, it highlights and jumps to any incidents of what will be created if anything is triggered or violated, any of our conditions are violated. Open incidents, we don't have any. All incidents, again, there may be some listed if there were here, but we don't have any in the last 60 minutes in this account. What we want to do is we want to set up a policy. So we're going to come down to the menu option on the left, to policies. And this is where we set up policies are like your container, your folder for what the condition might be and what to do with it when you get if you violate one of those conditions. So you can see here we've got things like high CPU infrastructure alerts. If we label them up kind of more intelligently, I guess, here is like the super devs team, pet clinic performance issues, right? So I might just pick one of these. You can choose to pick one of these and add to it, or from the policies, just set one up from scratch. Choose up here the little new alert policy plus button. So let's set up a new one, and let's call this LH. We are developers NRQL alert. I'm going to leave it the incident preference, which is how you want to kind of group your incidents as they get pushed out. So I'm just going to group them all by this policy. We're only going to have one today. So I'm just going to leave that on the default option and choose create alert policy. Okay, we've got no alert conditions and no channels yet. Conditions are what we specify to be alerted on, and the channels are how we get notified. Distribution list, Slack channel, and so on. So I'm going to click the first button, create a condition. And here's how we can target, if you like, different parts of our stack. As we talked about there, when we're looking at like the data coming from the new Relic agents, from APM or browser, we could pick any of those. But if we're using just the data platform as is, we're going to use NRQL. So I pick that one, and then I can define my thresholds. So we're back to the NRQL prompt, enter a query, and then down below we can specify what the trigger would be. We've got like a static threshold or a baseline or an outlier. So I'm going to keep it simple today, just choose a static one, as I said. So let's say I want to select, bring back a value. Let me find out what the max duration is for my backend service. So I'm going to choose from, start to type T, and choose transaction. Or it could be metric as well, right? And this shows me a little chart, and I'm querying that NRU training account as it says up here, and these are the response times. So we see, look, there are some spikes here. So this, the scale, and these will vary depending on what your applications are. So you could say, look, I'd like to have been notified for this, right? So this query returns a value above. I'm going to put 3. It shows me that's what I would get notified for, the critical threshold. And I could say for at least 5 minutes, like that would mean there is like quite a you know, rather than just like a momentary issue, that there definitely is an issue with the application. But you could, of course, change this as well to just as soon as we hit that bracket, at least once in. So you've got a couple of options there. And then you just give it a name, and we're going to call this max transaction, or let's call it be specific, transaction over seconds. Great condition. So I've been able to set up that condition. No one's getting it notified at the moment because I've got no notification channels. I don't really need to add any today, but here's how you could add notification channels. You'd need to set them up in the configuration settings here, notification channels on the left first, but if you have got some set up, you would just pick them here, email, any channels for Slack, Campfire, PagerDuty, or we've even got a webhook as well, so you can just customize that JSON payload, but essentially choose where you want to push it out to and use that as a notification channel. So if you want to just get hands-on and build a quick NRQL alert, I'm going to give folks just another couple of minutes to get one of those set up. And that will be our final lab for today.
So yeah, I've seen a couple of people build dashboards in the New Relic University account. That's cool.
Yay, excellent.
Okay, Barry, yes. Have a nice day.
Thanks for joining, Barry.
Yeah.
Great to have you on board. Enjoy the rest of your day. If folks do have to drop, there is a survey that you can access, but I'm going to tee that up at the end because I think maybe it's the sort of thing that you once you start, you know, I don't know, it might be the final thing. So, but there is the survey option there on the left, guys. So if anybody does have to drop, check the menu option on the left. There should be a little survey there. That's a great way for you to give us some feedback. But also, in a minute, I'm going to share with everyone, or you should have the PDF anyway, but in the final slides of the PDF, there are some, there's a form that you can just fill in a couple of questions and you can, we can send you out some swag pack. I think t-shirt definitely is included. So don't miss out on that for sure. So let me wrap up then. Just to conclude then, we've looked today at the telemetry data platform to bring together all of our metrics. We wanted to make sure that we're making the most of our metrics. So it might be metrics, but it could also be different data types like events, logs, traces, bring them together from any source. That's what we did. We might have been using Prometheus already and Grafana, so we wanted to maintain that workflow, give you the option to work with those dashboards. But we also looked at, and you guys have gone on ahead, as Jan says, and built some pretty cool dashboards in New Relic today, right now, which is fantastic. But also with the TDP, the telemetry data platform, you can get notified. So metrics, dashboards, and alerts all sorted. So here's a slide here. It's quite a lot on it, so I'm not going to go in detail on it, but it's a SaaS platform. We talked about its scalability and the benefits of having data in one place. It is also programmable, so you can build your own sort of ways to visualize that data. So taking the TDP, the telemetry data platform as is, will mean you can build your own ways to visualize the data, functionality for it, using the tools that our developers and engineers use already. It's using React.js components, ours and third-party ones. So yeah, those are the summary of the power of something like a telemetry data platform. It's enterprise grade, FedRAMP, supports access like RBAC for growing teams, and it even offers the ability to make it future-proof with things like AI. You can power up your alerts with AI ops functionality and machine learning. But what where do we start with it? Well, you guys have all got a free account now, so you can start for free, and you get 100 gigabytes of data free every month. On top of that, it's priced at 25 cents per gigabyte ingested. But like, depending on if you've got like a few instances running in a cloud, you can check and see how your data has been used as you go, monitor it. So start testing, start using it, see how you go with it. But with this one free account, it's a perpetual free tier. So that telemetry data platform, you get that ingest data per month. You also get one free license to the full stack monitoring that we started to look at, APM, synthetics, browser, and also access to the applied intelligence. Again, check that out. So you might be thinking, what does all this? How could I learn more a little bit about it? Well, we've been looking at the telemetry data platform. The other two ways to build up your observability would be to move to full stack observability and applied intelligence. And as we said, you've got one free user access to that. You've got all of this now with your free account. So how could I learn more or find out what's available with full stack observability? Well, probably the best place to start would be our New Relic University Learn site. This is learn.newrelic.com, and it will give you free access to a bunch of overview course with little short videos on how to make the most of telemetry data platform, full stack observability, and applied intelligence. So these are all free to access. You do just need to register. Any email address doesn't have to be the same one that you started with today in your account. So that's the great place to start. You could access our open source site, see how we're supporting the community and the projects we're working on. And of course, we've got a really, as you've used today, our doc site, docs.newrelic.com. Or if you want to see just more about our development, developers.newrelic.com. So these are all linked across here. When you start with Learn, you can go to our developers site. We've got a Nerd Days coming up, so you could register for that in 13 days. We've got one in the US friendly time and one coming up in EMEA. You've also got access to the docs here, our community, and our open source site. So those are all linked from the learn.newrelic.com. Great place to get more resources. But, if you enjoyed what you heard today, we'd love to know about it. So please give us a quick bit of feedback in the little survey we've got on the menu on the left. If you'd like to request a demo, there are some links here. You've got the PDF for this, so reach out to us. Any questions, reach out to us, contact us. There's also a We Are Developers Dev Day coming up on the 9th of October. You could register for that. So I'm happy to make sure that you know that that's coming up. But also I mentioned, if you want your free nerd pack, pop onto this Google Forms, and I think that's the way that we can send you out a t-shirt or whatever the latest New Relic swag is. So that's probably the most important thing for for today. All right. If anybody has any questions, we're happy to, if we haven't answered them already, we're happy to have a discussion or pick those up. So I would like to thank everyone for attending and your time today. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. The full 2 hours is brilliant. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it's been an interesting session for you. But if you have any questions, reach out to me. There's my email address. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm constantly kind of on there and sharing what's happening and anything going on in the observability and telemetry sort of space. So yeah, I'd love to keep in touch after today's session. So let us know if you have any questions, but appreciate you jumping on today's session. And as I mentioned, yeah, you should be able to give us a little bit of feedback on your menu options down on the left there by going to the survey. There's only 3 questions, so it's not a big time invest. So yeah, thank Stefan and all the guys at We Are Developers for putting this session on. It's been really well organized and super easy to deliver. So and thank you, Jan, for being doing such a great job on all of the questions and helping the guys out. Yeah.
So, Liam, can you maybe post the link to the survey again?
Yeah. It's here.
Oh, it's built in the UI, right?
Yeah. built in the UI, Atanas. So you should find it in the little clipboard button on the left there. And just a couple of questions. Would you like a demo? How engaging with the speakers? How do you rate the content? And a little open box for any comments or feedback. Yep. Excellent.
Let me do some additional promo while we're here and waiting for any questions coming up. Of course, we have seen Liam today. If you want to continue with DevOps journey and getting deeper into tech, we have Martin Thalmann tomorrow, who will talk about the maturity check and how to balance autonomy and alignment in bigger enterprises. Once you come to DevOps, just getting on a DevOps journey is the first step. Staying there is another story. And next week will be virtually in Switzerland. There will be the We Are Developers Live Week. I think we will have the possibility to meet Jan again on Friday, which is the DevOps Day. Other than that, we will also have other topics from security, machine learning, cloud, blockchain, that was it, and DevOps throughout the week. So join in. Some interesting things coming up. I'm looking forward to two things especially. One is Tanmay Bakshi, who will talk about machine learning models and what they actually are. And also to Notchnitzer Fee, who will be on Friday, will talk about PWAs and how this all comes together. So this being said, hast du mich jetzt abgedrückt?
Stefan, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow,
Yeah, the AV
something
pod.
dropped.
The AV pod disappeared.
Yes, completely. Yeah, interesting. Maybe Click Meeting should use New Relic 1 to get an overview about their backend. I can highly recommend it to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's easy to set up anyway.
Yeah, this is what we saw. Unfortunately, I couldn't follow live. And yeah, because my computer has multiple functions, but not that I can. Yeah, it was itching in my fingers. I always wanted to do that stuff. This is why I also asked in the beginning if we can access Instruct also later on, so I can follow that through.
Exactly. Yeah, Instruct is cool. It's cool. So you have the link and work through it.
Yeah.
It's good fun. Good stuff.
It's really it's a escape room for developers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I think this is the point of our journey where we say bye-bye, and where we also say bye-bye to the people who are watching, and also for people who are only watching the stream and who did not go to the website and register, so they did not get all the info beforehand. But still, you have the possibility to go on Instruct, you have the possibility to contact Liam, yeah, and meet together with us next Friday for We Are Developers Live Week and DevOps. Okay, so
yeah, I just shared all those links again in there, Stefan. So you have the Dev Day link in there, and yeah, if folks want to register for their Nerd Pack or request a demo, etc.
Oh.
So yeah, thank you, Stefan, for putting this session on. Brilliant, really enjoyed it, and thank everyone for their attendance and questions and engagement. It's been great. Super job.
Okay, so yeah, bye-bye.
Have a good day. See you again soon. Take care.
Bye.
Again. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.